begin with roll call in alphabetical order. Cheryl Caruana. Here. Tim Collins.
Present.
Sean Kennedy.
Here.
Lisa Murray. Here. Rich Rutherford.
Here.
Mike Terrabasi.
Yep.
And Michelle Boudreaux. Here. If you would please stand. Sean,
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. We will begin with our student representatives. Well, tonight we have Kate Zilli. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. We haven't had much going on with break occurring, but basically I know right now the high school is definitely expecting to have finals next week and getting ready for all of that. In addition to that, we had our Santa event this year in the cafeteria, which went really well as we invited all of the other staff members from the school district, and we had a lot more families in attendance which participated and got to do all the different crafts with us.
Thank you. Any questions for Cadence?
Anything you're looking forward to this winter?
Not really, just getting ready, looking at colleges for next year and trying to travel before that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so we will continue with the superintendent's update.
Thank you. As I'm sure you all remember from charting the course, one of the 3 roles of the school committee is to set policy, except there's an exception to every rule. And one of those is the health policy, because there's another regulation that specifically gives that policy to the wellness committee in the district, which in our district is chaired by Jen and Julie. They have been working really hard on updating the wellness policy. As you know, I like to provide updates on our strategic plan, and this is one of the goals of our strategic plan, so I would like to ask them to come forward and help me present this item by doing it for me.
Thank you for having us. As John said, Jen and I chair the Wellness Committee in the district, and back in 2023-24, the Wellness Committee goal, we set goals every year, so our goal that year was to assess and revise the wellness policy. The last time it had been revised was 2017. A new DESE regulation requires that the policy is assessed every 3 years. We used a tool called the WellSat tool. It's provided by UConn, Rudd Center for Food Policy and Health. And the goal was to bring the policy in line with current practices and align it with a format that was recommended by DESE. The WellSat tool goes through and scores your policy in each section. And what we found as we went through WellSat was that there were many things that we were already practicing, but it was not written into the policy. So in order to get better scores on the WellSat, we needed to put those practices into writing. We actually took a class online that spring called School Wellness for Student Success, and it was offered by the John Stocker Institute, which is a division of Framingham State. So it focused on developing and revising district wellness policies. Jen and I both completed that course, and then we got to work. The final policy was completed in June of 2024, and it was communicated to families and staff in the fall of 2024. Our wellness committee is comprised of nursing staff, parents, teachers, administrators, Dr. Casper, and we also report within our SEAT team here in the district. So that greater SEAT committee, we report back, we get into smaller groups for wellness topics, and then we report back to that committee 4 times a year. So our final policy, some of the updates included, we eliminated a lot of unnecessary language and put it into a more streamlined format. 3 of the things that we found that were practiced that were not in writing, we added professional development requirements for food service staff. DESE has very specific requirements for food service staff of how many professional development hours they need, part-time, full-time, and supervisors. So we wrote that into the policy. We added language on drinking water. We are required to provide drinking water at both breakfast and lunch in all schools, which we do, but we just did not have that in writing. We updated universal free meal language because that has come about since 2017. We updated some food allergy language pertaining to after-school activities. We updated the student reward section to add an exemption for IEP language and encouraging physical activity as a reward. We linked the food use form to the policy. There is a curriculum exemption in our policy that teachers can use if they're using food for a curriculum-based activity. So we link that form in the policy so that it's easier to find and use. We linked the competitive food standards to the a la carte section, which was written out in the old policy, which was kind of cumbersome. And then in the food allergy section, we provided much more specific guidelines to keep students with allergies safe. Most of those guidelines were about elementary school classrooms and what types of food can be allowed in classrooms, especially in classrooms with kids with allergies, with no home-baked foods, and making sure that all those foods had a label if those are being sent in from home. So Jen is going to update a little bit on the 2024-2025 Wellness Committee activities.
So it tied in perfectly actually with this. We applied for a grant through American Academy of Pediatrics and got a $10,000 grant that was looking at food allergy management in schools. So it was perfect, kind of went along with this. So we used over last year, we had a small committee of parents, nurses, Dr. Casper, trying to think who else, you and I, yeah. And we came up with basically what to use the money for. It was a great grant, very free kind of in what we could use it for. It was wonderful to work with them. We basically used it to train all food staff and over 100 teachers, paras, lunch monitors, and other support staff on allergy awareness. We paid staff to basically take a 1-hour course, online course, keeping students safe and included. The money also was used to run a Be a Pal curriculum, which is Be a Pal, Protect a Life allergy curriculum for high school, middle school students. We did that. Actually, nurses went in to all the elementary schools and basically ran that curriculum, or did a day in there doing the curriculum. And then in the advisory for middle school and high school, they did it. We purchased some grade level allergy awareness books that were given to the library. All the nurses have a couple of them in their offices. We printed up some posters, the Be a Pal posters, and put them up in the cafeterias. Oh, and then the big purchase that we got approval for, which we weren't sure we were going to, but was to purchase an additional table for the cafeteria at Stony Hill. When they bought their new cafeteria tables, they hadn't factored in sort of having an allergy-free table, and so they kind of used up all their money through their grant, and then we were able to use some of this to purchase an additional one for them, which was great. Also at Minnechaug, we did an incentive where we had a PowerPoint presentation that ran in the cafeteria, and then students won a pizza gift card, I think, if they answered some questions based on the PowerPoint. We were also able to roll over the money into this year, which was nice because we do have a little bit left over, so we're continuing to just offer the online training to whoever staff want to take it. And then we'll use it up, and that was it. But it was a good grant to have and get, and worked well. We also have current goals for this year. We have to make wellness goals. And we have a nutrition goal and a physical activity goal that's required. So for the 2026 school year, we're basically striving to have 100% of all eligible schools in the district comply with the established wellness policy regarding non-food rewards and classroom celebrations. I think we do a pretty good job of that, so just continuing to encourage that. And then for the physical activity goal, again, I think we're doing this well, but we're just trying to promote it and encourage it. To have 90% of all K-8 classrooms consistently document providing students with at least 2 separate structural physical activity breaks lasting 3 to 5 minutes each per week outside of their regular PE time. So that's it. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
With the change politically for vaccination, how are we preparing to let parents and all of our staff know what will be happening?
The state of Massachusetts follows the American Academy of Pediatric recommendations, which is not in line with what has come out.
Could you just say that a little louder?
Sure. So the state of Massachusetts follows the American Academy of Pediatric guidelines, which hasn't changed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And I also spoke with Dr. Casper about it today, actually. And she said, we will continue to just do the recommendations that we have always done.
Will there be any literature going out to parents to explain what's going on with it?
Too new at this point for me to have made any decision on that or talk to Dr. Casper about it. I don't know yet.
Okay.
I had a question about recess, which is covered in this policy. It says a minimum of 15 minutes, but with the goal of 20 minutes. That's like a 30% difference in time. Are they getting 20 minutes?
It's a good question.
It just seems like, when you look at it by a percentage, that's a huge, that's a huge gap in time. And I think a lot of people argue that, we should be looking for opportunities for more recess. And so, I kind of hoping that they're at least getting the 20.
It's a good question, and I would say it probably varies by school, and that's a decision that the principals make in that scheduling. So I'm not exactly sure. I certainly see kids coming and going to recess with all their big bags of belongings and mittens and things falling on the ground where they're trying to get their lunch trays. So I do know they're getting recess. We could probably get back and see with exactly what's happening in the schools, but that's something that's scheduled by principals.
We encourage that length, but I don't know that it's always that much.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, nice job, appreciate it. Moving on, I have the enrollment report. I also have the NASDAQ projected enrollment. This question has come up before about how often do we get these, how do we get these. As a member of NASDAQ, we receive updated projections at the end of every calendar year, so we just got our updated projection. I have given you a color-coded sheet. This is page 4. I added some color coding because I think it might make this conversation a little bit easier to follow. I also provided you with a color-coded version of the enrollment report that you're used to seeing, just because that might help to highlight some things that I want to talk about. And I'm going to just give a warning here that I'm going to get fairly deep into the weeds. So I will remember that I'm also an English major and I'm not supposed to bury the lead. So I'll just start with the most important piece, which is that based on students already known to be born in our towns or enrolled in our elementary schools, we know that middle school enrollment is lower now than it'll be at any time in the foreseeable future. I'll say that again. This is the low point for middle school enrollment. It only goes up from here. So now to get into the documents. The January 1st enrollment is 2,837. That's up 4 students from last month. This is the enrollment report we're used to seeing, arranged vertically. And your vertical columns here from pre-K to 12 correspond to this table, the first horizontal line, which is the current school year 25-26. So that's just to orient you to the documents. And you can see the cells match within a student or two of the your current numbers that were just reported for January. It's because this data was taken a little bit earlier than the January 1st report, but for the most part it's the same, with the exception of preschool, which is up, and preschool is that one grade that continues to grow quite markedly throughout the year, because eligibility is when students turn 3, whenever that happens to be, unlike the other grades. Okay, so turning now to page 4 of the NESDEC report, that's this thing with the sort of slanted color-coded rows. It's called page 4, but it's one there. Sorry for the confusion about that. This is an updated report from the last projections that we have been talking about recently. And although they still show that the district will add students in the coming decade, the projections were revised down from the previous year due to 3 factors noted in the enrollment summary. Firstly, our actual kindergarten enrollment came in 30 students lower than projected. This smaller class will move through the system over the course of the next 12 years, so that affects enrollment over all of the next 12 years. Also, the 9th grade enrollment was 25 seats lower than they projected. As you will recall, that was a policy decision that we made in order to move the ICP students to the high school. We reduced our choice students coming into the high school by about 25, so that accounts for that. You'll also notice that 8th grade is down. I think that is an aberration, because in the way our data is reported, the 8th grade students who are actually in the ICP are listed in the ungraded column. So 8th grade didn't go down, the students just went somewhere else. It would really be more representative and I think true to the actual situation if they were just listed in the 9 to 12 grade band rather than we put it in their own grade band. So I think that is a little bit of an aberration that also affects the projections. But it doesn't change the outcome. Just to give you an example of that, the 8th grade currently lists 178 students. That is not the right number. If you look on your sheet, you can see the 8th grade also lists 178, but then we have down at the bottom P8 and SP30. That's where the rest of the 8th graders are. So that's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. So although the known birth rates although the known births and projected birth rates remain little changed from the last estimate, kindergarten enrollments for the next 10 years were revised down from an average of 209 to an average of 196. I believe that adjustment to the projection is based on the lower number of kindergarten students that we received this year. It should be noted that every year in this projection, as in the prior projection, as in our actual experience, the number of kindergarten students exceeds the live birth rate for their natal year, with the difference being attributable to families with young children moving into town. Last year's projections estimated that kindergarten enrollment would exceed the live birth rate by 43%. In reality, it exceeded the live birth rate by 22%. Whether this represents a short-term or long-term real estate trend remains to be seen. For this projection, NESDEC assumes that kindergarten enrollments will exceed live birth rates by about 35% over the next 10 years. So, in other words, 2/3 of your kindergarten class is born in town, 1/3 moves to town before the students become age 5. The projection also assumes that class sizes will grow from year to year in the elementary grades, decline slightly from year to year in the middle school grades, bump up quite a bit between 8th and 9th grade, and then decline slightly in 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. If you go back to this sheet, I've highlighted some cells just to show you how that happens. I started with 2021 because I felt it was important to get beyond COVID. There were a lot of aberrations with student enrollment because of COVID. But if you look first at Mile Trees Kindergarten in 21 to 1st grade in 22 to Stony Hill 2nd to 3rd grade, that's essentially the same cohort of students. So you can see the class started at 135, grew to 141, then 148, then 155. Over in Hamden, the same thing was happening. Green Meadows that year had 45 students in kindergarten. Next year, when that group was first graders, it had grown to 50, and by second grade, it had added 4 more students, 54, and then grade 3 was 56 students. So our district has a pattern where as the classes age, they grow. Again, that's due mostly to in-migration as families join the district and the class sizes grow. So that is an important part of the projection. And you can see what they're projecting to happen in the future is exactly what we've seen has happened in the past. So that seems to be a reasonable projection to make. So the net of all the adding and subtracting is that the graduating class contains about 36 more students than the kindergarten class had 13 years previously. So from birth to kindergarten, we gain about 50 students, and then from kindergarten to graduation, we add 36 more. So it's more or less constant growth of the cohort through that time, with the exception of middle school, where there is a few years where things go down, and then with the exception of late high school, where students leave, sometimes due to early graduation, sometimes due to other things. So we currently have 3 relatively smaller classes, which I've highlighted in blue and pink on the enrollment projection. You can see they kind of go in diagonal lines because each year they're a grade older and a year older. One of those classes is the current grade 7. That's a grade that's currently helping to mitigate overcrowding at the middle school. But next year there'll be 8th graders, and the year after that, this class of 192 students will leave the middle school and be replaced by a 6th grade that has 31 more students than the exiting class. At that point, the middle school will have almost 9% greater enrollment than it currently does. So that's 9% growth in 2 years, 3 years. Our current kindergarten and first grade are also relatively smaller. First of those students will arrive at middle school in 2030, so there will be a few years of relief, but once that group moves through, middle school numbers will start rising again, reaching more than 700 students by 2034. We know the middle school is overcrowded now, and we're giving these projections based mainly on students who are already in our classes. These are students we already know. These are not projected, hypothetical, or mathematical model students. These are kids who are in the pipeline. Based on the ones we already have, we know that we'll have 100 more middle schoolers who need a place to learn by 2034. So if we want to give the children already enrolled in our schools what they need in order to thrive, if we want to be a community that continues to benefit from the in-migration of families with young children, we really need to get our choices right, as you all know. I'm very motivated to work with the committee and the boards to find a solution to this problem. I'm encouraged to see that there is an increased awareness of this need in the community. I will rely upon your guidance to shepherd this process through to conclusion because you all understand the local context much better than I do. But it's exciting because I believe we have before us a generational chance to set a course that will carry students well into the second half of the 21st century. So it's a scary and exciting time to be your superintendent, but I thank you for the privilege and look forward to the conversations to come.
Yeah, John, I have some questions on the data. I have the data from last year and the data from this year, okay? And they're looking at our projections if we go from 2025 to 2034, 35, if we look at that 10-year span, okay, on both of those sheets, because, you know, 24, 25 is not on the new projections. The projections have decreased by about 7.5%. Okay, in just a year's time. All right, if you look at the number of students, a number of births, they're also off by the number of births by, you know, between 10 and 1 per year. But down, if you go and you look at the projection changes, I mean, we're talking for 25, 26, that's 30 kids difference, so less 30 kids. For the 26, 27, less 55 kids. From the 27, 28, less 73 kids. From the 28, 29, less 87 kids. And then the 29, 30, less 110 just for the pre-K 5. Okay? So in a year, that is a massive, I mean, that's not the NASDAQ information that I got. I'm really surprised that there is such a decrease in 1 year of the assessments. I mean, I think 7 to 7.5%. I mean, that's in a 1 year's time. That seems to me to be, I don't want to say irresponsible. I'll just say astronomical. How's that?
Yeah, they're all estimates. I'm sorry. They're all estimates, and what the main driver on there is the projected lower kindergarten enrollments as compared to what they had last year. And I think that's, I don't know 100% the math behind it, but I think they revised that downward based on what we had for kindergarten enrollment this year.
So we used to have this thing when we would do accounting, as we would call it a WAG, you know, forgive my language, a wild ass guess, okay? How much of this is a WAG and how much of this is science? Because, I mean, 1 or 2%, I mean, I'm just, it's 30, 55, 73, 87, 110 out of, you know, 1,300, what is it here on this one here, out of 1,317, they were at 1427, that's 110 difference, and that's only over 5, 6 years from now. So I just don't understand how, I mean, these kids are already born close to it, right?
Not all of them. So this is actually color-coded to show the level of confidence with the estimates. So the white cells, if you look at the key, say, based on students already enrolled, those are the cells that they have the greatest confidence with predicting, because like I said when I was giving my presentation, they're already in our seats. The blue cells are based on students already born, but not yet old enough to be enrolled. So there is still a high level of confidence, but not as much as the students who are already enrolled in the school, because we don't know how many of those will enroll in school. Some of them may homeschool, some of them may move to other communities, etc. And then the green cells are based on estimates of birth. So that one has a double estimate in it. It's based on what we estimate the live birth rates in those years will be, and then what we estimate the enrollment in kindergarten will be from those live births, and plus from the other residents who will move into town during those times.
Yeah, I don't know how much we can rely on these numbers. I mean, before I was always impressed at how strong the numbers were, how the numbers have come in when they would do those big studies, but now that they're providing us this information on a yearly basis, I am not impressed. I mean, the difference between 2025 and 2026 from the two reports, it's 30 students. I mean, we know this gap. We know these kids who are coming in. We know what's happening. And it's a minus of 30, not a plus of 30. So, I mean, unless the infant mortality rate is a lot higher than I think it is in Wilbraham, I don't understand why we have these.
As I explained earlier, the differences for this year were caused by three things. One is that there were fewer kindergarten students enrolled than they were projecting. We had in 2021 141 live births. We enrolled 172. They were projecting we'd be up around 200. So we didn't get as many families moving in as they were projecting we would have. So that's the difference there. The other difference I mentioned was in 9th grade, where we reduced the number of choice students. You know, they were kind of had a 9th grade bump that was based on our traditional number of choice students that we took. This year, we took it down by 25, and that's kind of where they landed on the actual thing. And they're projecting that both forward. So both of those things carry forward for 13 years in these projections. And the kindergarten has the most impact, because if they're saying every kindergarten will be smaller than they had originally projected last year, that has a cumulative effect. But as you said, this is not a science, it is an art. And next year, we could be looking at projections that are lower, we could be looking at projections that are higher.
Which makes it a lot harder for us to figure what's going to go wrong, or what's going to go on 7 years down the road when we're talking a difference of 2,113 students. So, I don't know, I think we need to figure out better how to look at this situation that we're in and how to plan that. But we can, like you said, it could go down another 7% next year. I don't have the information with me from 23 to 24, but I'd like, it'll be interesting to see, did it go up, did it go down, and then from 22 to 23, how much of our projections changed over time. I'm just pulling numbers with what I have right in front of me.
I think, what I always look at is, if you look at the full report, the summary page at the beginning basically talks about where we ended up, where their projections were high, where their projections were low, and then what the overall difference is. So that is, I believe, right after the table of contents. In that, they also tell how close they had come on their last projection. So last projection, they were off by 98 students. So one way of doing it that just occurs to me talking to you is we could go back and look at what this first page has said through the years, see how far they're off, and say, plus or minus that amount may be the range to which we could trust these numbers.
I think it's good that we're getting estimates every year. So many things can impact these numbers, right? And there's no way to control them. All they can, it's nice every year to take a look at the numbers and take a best guess of where we're going. The birth rate can be impacted by, people's sense of security in regards to wars around the world, the economy, politics that are going on nationally, right? And then, families moving into town, that could be impacted. It's like, the word on the street could be if you want to move somewhere with a good school to, the word on the street might be to go to Long Meadow instead of Wilbraham or Northampton. You know what I mean? So, and that'll change year to year, right? It could fluctuate. We are currently in Wilbraham for sure struggling with elevated property values, and that's probably more than anything else a huge barrier to young families moving into the school district on the Wilbraham side. It's just the reality of the situation.
I only have anecdotal information from my own life where I'm a justice of the peace. I do it, and for people in Wilbraham or people at the company I work for, I don't charge, right? So I've done a bunch of weddings, let's say, in the last 6 months, and there are new families that are coming into town, and it's just husband and wife. They're young, they're coming in, some in their, low 20s, some in their low 30s, whatever, and they came here, they say, because of the schools, which is the first reason why they said they came here. And a doctor that I talked to today actually said that he knows so many other doctors that have just recently moved into town. He's over at Bay State, and he loves his town. He loves everything. He's all in, but no kids yet. So does that mean kids are coming? Does that mean kids aren't coming? I don't know. It's a wag. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much. So we'll continue with old business. Previous meeting, we had a discussion and the topic of moving 8th grade to the high school came up, so I didn't know if the committee was interested in continuing that discussion. If there's no interest, we can move on. We're on old business, A, moving the 8th grade to the high school.
Yeah.
Sure, do it. Just your microphone.
Given the condition of Wilbraham Middle School, given the overcrowding of Wilbraham Middle School,
given that right now we could take a percentage of people in the 8th grade and move them into much nicer accommodations from their own. I think if we present it to the families as that is, you want them in the old, conditions, or can we get more people out of there and also give better conditions to your 8th graders that we could maybe sell and move to the high school. I know I had an 8th grader, I moved into high school to learn this environment rather than what I saw over Wilbraham middle school. So I think it's something we should actively look at, but we have to sell the deal. It seems if we go at it the right way, it should be something we should be able to do.
I know there were fears, thanks Rich, I know there were fears that some parents said about moving their kids, the 8th graders, to Minnechaug. So my son, and we've had lots of conversations and lots of anxiety about it, was one of those students that decided to do 8th grade at Minnechaug this year. And I ask him all the time, what do you think? What do you recommend for the future? And it's interesting, he has said to me, he has 2 strong recommendations, which I believe are shared with John. The first, have a minimum of 2 classes, at least 50 kids, right? And then have it so that the teachers who do come up to this program, they have to get a letter of recommendation from a teacher in order to be part of that program. He says, the kids need to have something invested. They had to, it's not just something, oh, you can just go there or whatever, okay? He has not been assaulted by anybody. There might have been some teasing going on. I think there's been some disciplinary issues with some of the 8th graders, but that would have happened if they were 8th grade at Minnechaug. He loves the school. He loves the school lunches. Oh, I think they've already left. He loves the school lunches. He loves most of his teachers. And he does love the relationships that he has with the upperclassmen. It's a positive thing in his life, I understand what people were saying before, but I've seen what my son has gone through, and I'm telling you right now, he has a jump on every other 8th grader that is coming to Minnechaug next year because he's already used to this school. This school is his home. There's no big, he's gone through this in the 8th grade, right, this year. He's gone through making this his home, right? And it's going to be his home for 5 years. So I highly, strongly, again, it's 1 student or 20 students, right? I think we have 20 students that moved over. Will it be different with more students? It could be, but I'm telling you, in every way, the positives, yes, the negatives, yes. This was an outstanding experiment that has benefited my child, and I believe the other children that are in the program, though I have not spoken to them. I've just spoken to Nicholas. This building is amazing, and you can just see, like, the teachers here, it's just wonderful. I'm not saying anything negative about the middle school. The middle school teachers, I think, are doing amazing work where the kids don't feel the overcrowded. They don't notice it because of the teachers and the administrators, right? But to help out and to move the 8th grade here would benefit these children who are coming here, experiencing the 8th grade here, so that when it comes 9th grade, there's no adjustment. They're already in it. This is their school. They already know their people. They know the upperclassmen. They're ready to go. So that's my humble opinion.
I'm very much against moving the 8th grade to the high school. I know we've got capacity issues in the middle school. I know we have a lot of issues in the middle school, let's face it, and not with the teachers, but with the physical plant, right? But overcrowding the high school, I don't think is a solution to that. I know the kids could technically fit. I believe in the middle school education model, and that's another thing that makes me apprehensive. Like, I saw a number of positive benefits that happened when both towns' middle school students came together. Like, the biggest, easiest example to see is band. Instead of, it used to be,
maybe the middle school band would all play together once before the concert, or just at the concert, right? But now they play together all the time. So, you know, I don't want to speak against the innovations pathway. I think it's an innovative pathway, and I don't think it's something that should be taken apart. But I do think, in agreement to your point, that there should be a more rigid selection process for what students that are permitted to come up to the high school, because there have been discipline behavior issues.
Just to point, that was my son's.
So, you know, that would be the only change that I would change. You know, I mean, if the situation in the middle school really deteriorated where it was like, I don't know, it's bad, but you know, I mean, if we had no other choice, then we would have to start thinking about where we can farm off kids into other buildings as a temporary stopgap measure. But right now, I'm personally against moving the majority of the 8th grade up to the high school. You know, and plus, you know, it's not just my feelings, right? I know the people in both towns are against it, right? And so part of my responsibility is to represent the people that elected me on that year, and you know, we've all been elected, right? So I kind of also try to think about not just what I think is best, but you know, here and do my job to represent the town.
What's the other choice that we have? You said it's you know, only if we don't have another choice, and I'm asking you, what is the other choice we have?
So I would say that if the middle school numbers went up by 50 to 100, I think we heard from the principal that would be an unworkable situation. So then we would have to revisit it, and then we might have no choice but to move a significant amount of the 8th grade up to high school. But I would look to hear from the middle school principal to tell us, okay, we are at the wall. We can't take any more kids in the building, right? I mean, he's there every day.
I wouldn't be for overcrowding the high school. I was told that the high school would not be overcrowded if we moved the 8th grade up, and I assume we're talking about moving the whole 8th grade, not just part of the 8th grade. And the other thing was, from my experience teaching, 9th grade was the biggest challenge is those kids get their freedom for the first time in this kind of atmosphere from middle school, and that's when the grades count. And a lot of kids had their worst academic time in 9th grade. And yet if you get them in 8th grade, they'll get through their socialization process in 8th grade, and I think they might be more settled down to the learning in 9th grade. And the other thing is there's so many schools out there that are K to 12 in one building, that are 6 to 12 in one building, and those schools don't have any problems. The other thing is in terms of representation of what we think is right, or what just publicity. You know, you've got to sell it in the right way. And there was people, you know, I've had representatives say, you know, interracial marriage, the public was against it, but the leaders had to say, well, we're going to change. Even in this own town here, when they went to legalize gay marriage, people voted against it. Some of the reps, because they said that's not what the people want. I want it. People want it. And it passed, and now the opinions changed. So a lot of people are opposed to almost anything until it happens. And I think it's up for leaders to lead the way and convince people this is going to be better, rather than just saying, because the majority of people are against it, I'll just go with them, even if I think it's wrong. So I think we have to do what we think is right, as opposed to just what the current people now think. We have to try to change opinions. So anyways, my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see what the other choice is, because right now the only thing, my answer to, well, the answer to the question of what the other choice was, well, we don't know if it's bad enough. We know it's bad, we just don't know if it's too bad or bad enough, or it's bad enough. Well, we have a student here. What do you think?
Before, sorry, we have other members that have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm frustrated that we're having this conversation again because I felt like it's already been put to bed, honestly. We were literally talking about this a year ago, almost probably exactly. We were talking about this a year ago, sitting in the auditorium, and we had all residents make a resounding no. Nothing has changed at the middle school since that. I know that there was talk about 8th grade moving up there before this happened. It was still a resounding no then too. When we were talking about it, we did talk about how there would be even though it says it's the capacity, it would be overcrowding. We had a conversation about having to feed students, maybe getting a pavilion, and and buy the money that we do not have to feed students outside just to make room for them. But again, during winter and inclement weather, that would not work. I gave it a listen. I thought maybe, I am personally opposed to 8th grade going to the high school as well, but I thought I will let the residents tell me what they want. They told me they don't want it, so it was up to us to come with a solution, right? I believe in a middle school model. I also don't believe in displacing the teachers at the high school, which would, I believe we discussed, teachers would not have their own spaces and would have to share rooms, so they would never have their own space, which I am completely against, especially when they're trying to make an environment for their students to go into that's welcoming to them and they feel comfortable. If teachers always have to move to a different room for each class that they teach, then their rooms will be bare basically the whole time, right? So we're trying to provide space for the kids to feel like a community and welcome. And I just don't think we have space for it. We've already had this conversation. And I think it's very interesting that we always talk about 8th grade moving up to the high school, but we always forget about how elementary is overcrowded. There's buildings in elementary that are overcrowded, but we always talk about 8th grade. So what are the solutions about the elementary schools getting out? So right now we voted to do a study, correct, about the middle school and what improvements that could come from what we need, and to get the community behind that. Part of those assessments are you need the number of students in that building to count, because what they tell you is based on the population of students in there. So if we're taking out a whole bunch of students, right, let's pretend they say we need a new building. I have no idea for you. If we need a new building and we took the 8th graders out of it, the building is going to be based on a smaller population for that size building. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the population that's there to get the building that they need so they can have an 8th grade middle school model, right? I need the kids there so we can get the most that we can get from a building or whatever improvements that we need.
I was not looking at this being necessarily permanent. It would be permanent until we got hopefully a new and improved middle school and then putting it back into middle school. So I wasn't
But
thinking.
if we move the kids and they're at the high school and then they tell us we need a new building, they're making the building based on the students that are in the middle school then.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I'm still, whatever you say does not change my mind.
Okay.
All right, Lisa.
I think to the side of the table. Cadence, do you have any comments you'd like to make? Josh, Doug, and John.
I totally agree with Mrs. Marie on this one. I'd say, like, looking at after what Mr. Kenny said with the discipline issues, you add a whole nother grade. You already have all of our vice principals and Mr. Hale already doing all the extra work to deal with all the disciplinary actions, and that would be adding even more on their plate, as there'd be even more because they're 13 years old and they're going to have disciplinary issues, which is going to add a lot more on them, on top of managing a whole nother grade. And as she was saying, the whole lunch thing, the cafeteria is not that big. So in reality, I feel like it's just adding another level of an issue rather than solving an issue, because what happens when the grades get even bigger and bigger, and then you're going to have 5 grades here and the grades are going to be too big. I think it's just overall a bad idea, and it's not worth it, because yeah, you're moving up, but then you're going to say, okay, now 7th grade needs to move up because X, Y, Z, they need the experience earlier, so it's an easier transition for 8th grade, and it's just a repeating cycle. Any other comments? This side?
I guess I would just say that although I'm involved in creating the agenda, I was kind of surprised at the last meeting that we were talking about it again, because this is a topic. There are some topics in districts that come up over and over and over again. I think this is the one for this district. I I do have to say, when we look at the chart that I shared tonight, I'm really worried about 27, 28, 28, 29, 29, 30, when you're talking about having significantly larger numbers. And this isn't, in the middle school, this isn't subject to that same kind of variance that we were talking about, because these are the white cells. These are the cells that are based on the students that we know exist. So fortunately, there is another year before that hits, but I do think we're going to be, whatever we do, we're going to be faced with a crisis at the middle school before there's the potential for an answer that provides any kind of space for the middle school. So I would not be in favor of moving the 8th grade just because of the conditions of the middle school, or just to, you know, get them into a better environment, better physical environment 1 year sooner as a one-off. I could imagine myself being in favor as part of a plan that involved getting the middle school to the place where it really needs to be. I hope that we're invited to participate in the core program, because part of that process will be the feasibility study and an opportunity for us to get some help from outside experts on how to manage this problem. You know, with, you know, no disrespect to myself or anyone else who's been thinking about it, we don't know what the answer is, right? Because we haven't been able to do it. We keep sort of circling around the same ideas over and over again. I really hope we have the opportunity for people who are experts in the field to say, here are your 3 best options. And so I'm hoping we'll be starting the process of applying to the core program next week. The window actually opens next Monday, I believe. I'm really hopeful, given the direness of the situation at the middle school, that we will be a compelling case to be invited into the core program. And I hope through that we're able to get some clarity that we haven't been able to get so far.
Just one more thing. Also think about it from the teacher's perspective at the high school. I can think of at least 3 teachers off the top of my head already with, on top of the work to rule thing right now, who are teaching 5 classes a day, on top of them being alternate day classes. So then they're prepping a 6th class, and they're, at the moment, they can't do it outside working hours, which is then a disadvantage for the students that they have, because say they need support, they can't stay after unless it's Tuesday, Thursdays. They're not getting their grades back quickly. Like, it's also affecting the students who we already have at the school, so it's just adding another layer of stress for them.
What I was going to ask Lisa, and I can also ask John. So we voted to go forward with this program, right? So will it solve the issue in 2026? No. Okay. Will it solve the issue in 2027? No. Okay. Will it solve the issue in 2028? No. Okay. Will it solve the issue in 2029?
If I might just sort of cut to the chase.
Yeah.
You know, we've been told minimum of 6 years based
Right.
on other districts' experiences.
So what are we doing for 6 years? Okay? What are we doing for 6 years? That we have no other choices. I've asked for choices. What can we do to mitigate the problems? I talked to the principal of the middle school. He says, number 1 thing he needs is space. He says he's dying. He needs space. Second thing, security with the cameras in the doors. Third thing is cleaning and ventilation, the floors and the airs. And then the 4th thing, energy with you know, the air coming in and out of the windows and stuff like that. So, I mean, there is, so for 6 years, we're just going to say, you know what, kids, hang on, because my son graduates in 2030, and after he graduates, then they're going to fix the problem.
I did not say that. What I said was I hoped that the feasibility study, which would be done long before the process of whatever kind of anything involving construction would be, might yield some new solutions that we haven't thought of yet or haven't looked at yet. I don't think we can forget about the middle school. I mean, the numbers I just showed you said we are going to be, I mean, we're already bursting at the seams. We're going to be spilling out into the parking lot in 2 or 3 years.
So I am, and I tried to hint at this, and I'll be clear about it. I am open to, you know, as a temporary stopgap, seeing the movement of the 8th grade to the high school, like. we
That's
may
what I'm
have
talking
to-
about. It's a
yeah,
temporary
we
thing.
may have to 2 years from now.
Yes.
You know, a couple of years from now, when those numbers hit, we may have to. But, as you also pointed out, these numbers are not entirely predictable, although the students are in our classes, but they might move out of town, we don't know, right? So, you know, we don't want to catch the student, you know, count the students until they're enrolled. So, but you know, you said we talk about this over and over again. I'm sorry, Lisa, but we're probably going to need to talk about it next January.
Maybe, but I'm still waiting for that study.
Yeah.
And that, none of that made me think that next year we should move the 8th grade to the high school.
I was looking at the numbers.
Right.
We might have to in a couple of years, or, I mean, so what's the alternative? The alternative is to rent temporary portable classrooms, right? Which now is a financial investment, and that would have to be, you know, considered along with discussion with the towns and available funding.
So we put money in temporary classrooms that we have for the middle school when we have empty classrooms that we could be using up here. Doesn't make sense.
I wasn't saying I was on board with that, but that is the other alternative.
Tim, are you looking to make a comment?
Yes, I was. Since I've been on this committee, we've been in violation of the agreement. Once we gave away Thornton Burgess, we created a problem that landed in the middle school. I don't want to see us rush to judgment and correct the middle school problem by creating a high school problem. What space that the current high school students have and are utilizing for what some people might say are extracurricular, but the bottom line is we do too much focusing on what's being tested and not enough courses where kids get to communicate with one another, different types of learning. I don't want to see those things go away in the high school just because we made the same mistake when we closed Thornton Burgess without knowing what we're going to do with all those students. We overcrowded the middle school. There are a lot of ways to look at this problem. The study may give us. I've seen in Springfield, when they wanted to renovate a building, they added temporary space to relieve the overcrowding while they were renovating and making a space livable in the old building. And then they did an addition. You know, so there's a lot of different ways to approach this. But the bottom line is, for over a decade, we've been ignoring the needs of the students in this district, as far as I'm concerned. As a person who spent 25 years teaching middle school, that's the last place you want to overcrowd kids. I mean, think about it. Kids that age, what they're going through, the challenges, the insecurities, they need space, and they need class sizes that are not in crowded, tiny little spaces. So we have to address this problem. You know, if there's only one thing I can accomplish is to get that point across to people. We're shortchanging every single student in this district who goes from kindergarten to grade 12, because they're going to hit that middle school wall. And if we're thinking of correcting the middle school wall by creating a wall in the high school, that's not the answer. I understand temporarily we might have to do something like that, but we got to bite the bullet. We either need a renovated an addition to our current middle school or a new middle school. Let's face the problem head on and go to the people in this community. People want to move here because it's got a good reputation in the schools. We're not going to hold that reputation for longer. We keep tinkering about this and not face head on the problem that we created and we have a responsibility to solve.
Before we move on to the next agenda item, we do have Steve here. Do you have any comments or anything that you'd like to add to the conversation? Sure, please, thank you.
So I only had an hour. one of the biggest problems with education, especially in suburban and rural education, is that the grade configurations are based on the facilities their towns can provide. Okay? So I went and did some research. I spent about an hour in Eric to see what does the research say about 8th grade at the high school level. So number one, academic outcomes may be lower. That when you move the 8th grade to a high school environment, they tend to have lower pass rates in reading and math compared to those 8th graders in middle school. That it's a developmentally untimely environment. The larger institutional jump for students at an age that are still developing, socially, emotionally, academically, that the transition generally suggests frequent or poorly supported transitions that can lead to declines in academic achievement and increased behavioral and social emotional issues, especially during young adolescence. That if we were really looking at what is the best configuration for students, the research suggests that K-8 settings is actually the best model to support achievement. That the longer students are together in one environment, the lack of transitions, and we know that in Wilbraham we have transitions every 2 years, that is not supported by the research, that it's actually K-8. Now again, I go back to we're hamstrung by the facilities that we have. We can't build 7 schools, right? That there's social and emotional considerations. That when students are transitioned into an older peer environment, it can disrupt their early adolescence. So in summary, the abrupt transitions and the more complex social settings can undermine their academic and social psycho adjustment. So that's just what I was able to find in an hour. There could be additional research that's out there. But I think it's important to understand that while the building was built for $12.50, when we moved in and we had $12.50, we had students sitting on the floor in the cafeteria. We didn't have enough room and that was students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. That I could take tomorrow if 200 kids in 9th grade through 12th grade showed up to register. I might need some teachers, but I could absorb them into our program very easily. When you bring another grade level that has specific social, emotional, and academic needs and space needs, what you're doing is you're forcing the other 1,000 kids to operate in 3/4 of the building. So you're creating an overcrowding here because of the space needs that the 8th grade program would need that is developmentally appropriate for them. And not to boast, but I'm the only one that's worked at an elementary, middle, and high school setting. I'm the only one here certified in elementary, middle school, and high school. So I know a little bit about this stuff. And we've asked the public 4 times to do this. Okay, we had the middle school task force. The public said no. We had another time where we asked with Superintendent Gannon to move the 8th grade. The public said no. We did it a year ago. The public said no. Then we developed the ICP program and said, you can come. We had 20 kids come. That's another way the public has said no. They want their 8th grade in a developmentally appropriate space. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. We are going to
Thank you,
move on to the next agenda item. So we have the monthly budget from Doug. Thank you.
So the budget report's really short, partly because the last one you got was only a couple of weeks ago, and I spent a little more time writing a little more text because I wasn't unable to come to the meeting. But nonetheless, I think the short story on our budget for the year is that we are in good shape as far as we can tell at this point. There are a couple of areas, particularly our spending in substitutes is higher than expected or higher than projected. You know, I was having a conversation with our office staff that track our leaves that we have. We've had a little uptick in the number of leaves than we've had in past years, so we've got a little more of that going on for a whole host of reasons. That's part of what drives the cost of our substitutes to be a little higher there. We'll have to find some resources in other parts of the budget to support that as we go through the year. Normally, you tend to have a little more use of substitutes in the second half of the year for a number of reasons, partly because cold and flu season is in January and February, and because you have other things that happen and you need substitutes, field trips, all sorts of things that do that. So ideally, we'd be less than 50% spending in our substitutes at this point. At this point, we're above that in both the long-term and short-term, so we are going to need to support that to finish out the year. I think the other thing I'll point out, it's not that you don't know this, we're still in our process of negotiating a couple of contracts, and so that we have accommodated that in our budget in some respects, and so in some ways what you see looks like we're really well under budget. But that's just because we have some resources set aside for those negotiations. Once that gets resolved, which I think we're all hopeful that will be fairly soon, we'll have a lot more clarity. We'll go through and retroactively pay people for the year. We'll adjust our encumbrances for the remainder of the year. We'll really have a clearer sense of exactly where we are with our budget. And so until then, we're taking the approach of our approval of spending as if we're on an on-target budget for the year, which I think we are. And I'm hopeful that I'm hopeful that remains true, and I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
I see no questions.
Was there any word about the insurance or anything like that yet?
We have it. So we have a meeting with our regional trust. So we have the Scantic Valley Regional Health Trust we are a member of. We will have a meeting on, I want to say the 3rd of February, where we'll set the rates for the coming year. And so,
I'm sorry, I thought it was the 3rd of January.
No, it would have been nice because it would help me with putting the budget together. But in the meantime, I'm taking what information we have gotten with our current trends and what we're hearing about, insurance nationally and that sort of thing, in projecting. It's going to be, decidedly more expensive part of our budget. That much I do know at this point. What exactly it's going to be, we'll find out in about a month or so. Similarly, the governor's budget will come out in later January, and that'll give us some indication around how state aid will impact both the towns as well as our Chapter 70 funding. So those are things coming, but we'll still have our estimates at your next meeting.
Thank you, Doug.
You can continue with me.
Sure. So in your packet is a memo from me and then a memorandum of understanding. So as you may be aware, or may not be, if we have students that are experiencing homelessness, we're required by the McKinney-Vento legislation to continue to educate them so they can stay in their home school. And so we're responsible for transportation. There are some supports in the state budget to help us with that as far as reimbursement of those costs, and we often share them with the residential district of the students when they're unhoused. In the circumstance of foster students, a similar thing applies. So if we have students that are experiencing transition to housing relative to foster care, they're still allowed to retain their enrollment in our district, and we're responsible to make sure they get here. So it requires special and different transportation. I'm not sure if we've experienced that in the past or not, or if we accounted for it in our reporting to the state or not. Maybe we had it, we didn't report it that way. Nonetheless, we did for last year. As a result, the folks at, and now I'm drawing a blank, it's got a clever name like Public Consulting Group, which is actually the name of the organization that works with the state to help coordinate this process. So what they do is have a memorandum of understanding between our district, DCF, DESE, and the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. Those are all involved in the foster care aspects and the funding for schools. So you do this memorandum of agreement once and only once, and then subsequently there are reports that I will have to create, which will not take very much time. It's like a single page for each of them. I've done in another district. It doesn't take very long. You've already accounted for this in your state reporting for the end of year for financials. So it really takes just a few minutes to do the other part of the paperwork that's required to get an additional reimbursement from the state. So it's under Title 4E of the Every Student Succeeds Act, where the funding actually comes from. But long story short, if you approve the memorandum of understanding, that stays in place permanently. I will then need to, in subsequent years, if we have this kind of expense, file the 2 documents that affirm and attest to the amount of money we spent, and they send us a little bit of money. It's about 18%. For this year, so for 2025 that just finished, the reimbursement will be about $900 is the estimate. So
I make a motion to authorize the Wilbraham Regional School District to enter into the Memorandum of Understanding Every Student Succeeds Act's transportation claim under Title, 4E of the Social Security Act, and to have the chair of the school committee sign as the authorized representative.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much. We are now at public comment. So if anyone is interested in making a public comment, if you could please come to the seat, make sure the green light, press the button and make sure the green light is on. If you could please state your name and your affiliation to the district, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Glenn. I'm chairman of the Hamden Select Board. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to take a brief comment. We're watching your meeting on December 18th because we love watching your meetings. It's must-see TV in the town of Hamden. And I wanted to talk about Sean's comment about the doors. He mentioned that there was reference to some broken doors that were being offered by Hamden to alleviate the problem at the Wilbraham Middle School. It may have been an off-the-cuff remark, but I didn't want it to stick in people's minds. What was said at the meeting, and both our selectmen, and I actually asked Mike as well if he recalled it, was that when we went through the change in usage of Thornton Burgess towards the Hamden Middle School, it became apparent that some of the doors inside the school were redundant, not necessarily for the plan we had for the flow, if you will, of a town hall. So we offered them, if they could be used at the Wilbraham Middle School for any replacements or upgrades. And I think that was the comment that was made both at the joint meeting when we had with Wilbraham Select Board and a couple of members of the school committee were there at that time. And I didn't want any misunderstanding. Sean, maybe you heard it wrong from somebody else or something like that, but we would never offer any broken things. I might also mention perhaps there's even another source. I don't know if you're looking at the old memorial school. Maybe there's some infrastructure there that could be used to alleviate any of the things that, for instance, Rich and I, when we toured, we did see some structures there where probably needed some upgrade, some door things, etc. And perhaps that's a source of material that might help there. So that's why I'm here. I really want to say I appreciate your commentation on the 8th grade. I think it was a good discussion. I think the bottom line is that sometimes we always don't get what we think what we want. It is a balancing act. Sometimes you have to look at all things together. I think as John said, if the goal is going to be towards looking at a new building, and I think, Sean, you were there with the discussion, you made a great point. What are we doing for the kids while we're going down that path? Because there's a 5-year gap, and I think that was in the letter we wrote to you as well. We need to make sure those children are protected as well. And sometimes you have to balance, and it's a little give over here so you can get over there. I don't envy your decision. I really don't, but I have faith in this committee that you're going to do the right thing for the people of Hamden and Wilbraham. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Is there anyone else that's interested in making public comment this evening? My name is Nicole Disa. I am a second grade teacher at Stony Hill School. I am here tonight because after a year of contract negotiations and 190 days of operating without a contract, it has been made painfully clear that we as educators in this district are not being treated as respected professionals, but rather as expendable laborers. I felt compelled to speak not only as an employee, but also as a resident of this town and the mother of 4 children educated in this town. As a taxpayer, I pay Wilbraham's high taxes with the expectation that those funds will be used to reflect the values this community claims to uphold. I expect them to support strong public schools by paying the educators who sustain them a fair, livable wage. But what I see instead has been delay, dismissal, and the willingness to let your teachers and paraprofessionals be disparaged while you sit back and debate whether or not we are worth it. Every day we walk into our classrooms and give everything we have to our students. We show up with patience when they are struggling, compassion when they are hurting, and consistency when their lives feel anything but. We are expected to do this with sacrifice, professionalism, and unwavering commitment, no matter how overworked and understaffed we are. Your inaction and treatment of us has been demoralizing, disrespectful, and irresponsible, while our only demand has remained for a fair contract that reflects our value. We've been told there is no room for fair wages at a time when our economy is strong, when revenue is up, yet the cost of living in Massachusetts is at a near historic high. We are said to be the second most expensive state in the country to live in, yet we have been met with nothing but discord when asking for our pay to keep pace with that. Please make no mistake, a wage that does not reflect this economy is not neutral, it is a pay cut. As a single income household, I can tell you my current salary is not sustainable. Without the proposed wage increase, I fear I no longer will be able to continue to teach in this district. Sadly, this is not only my reality, but that of many other educators within our school system. And when teachers like me are forced out, not because we want to leave, but because we cannot afford to stay, the students lose, the schools lose, and the community loses the people they depend on so greatly. Entering legal mediation should never have been necessary. It shows not a lack of money, but a lack of respect. It signals a breakdown in trust, a lack of urgency, and a failure to prioritize its educators. And the consequences of this failure will be measured not by our contracts, but in turnover, instability, and lost relationships with students. I am asking you tonight to please do better, to show this community that educators are valued not just in words, but in action, to recognize that fair wages are not a luxury, but a necessity. And to remember that when you choose not to invest in us teachers, you are choosing not to invest in the children. So I vehemently urge you to do what this community has entrusted and elected you to do. Our students deserve better, and so do we. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Is there anyone else who's interested in making public comment this evening? Oh, I have somebody. Is someone on the phone right now? No. Okay, so, and then Andy the phone.
I didn't want to step on anybody's toes or go before anyone else, but my name is Casey Persan, and I'm here as a parent of an elementary school student, and I am here, unfortunately, looks like by myself, despite having, do I have to hold this down? Or we good?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Good.
Despite all week hearing at practices and through parent text chains, what's going on? What's up with the teachers? You know, I can tell you, I have no idea. And until we heard and got emails from the teachers that this was going on, I had no idea. And I think as parents and taxpayers, we deserve to have some answers. And I've looked, and I don't know if there's a place or resource somewhere we can go to see what the problem is. We don't need to get into very specifics. Those are, you know, personal. I'm not looking for, oh, how much does this person make or whatnot. What I'm here to say is that I did move here for the school system, specifically. My daughter has thrived. I am so grateful for each and every teacher that she has had. And if I'm the only parent here willing to take the time and come tonight, please know that I'm not the only one that feels this way. The sentiment is great. People are confused. We don't understand. I don't know where else to go. I figure the school committee was the place to ask these questions. I would hope that you would back these teachers. I would ask for direction so that as parents we can also help support. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm sure there's reasons for where we're at, but what I can tell you is I am proud to be a Wilbraham resident. I love everything that we have to offer, and I want to keep that going. I would hate for any of these teachers to leave because they have to pay their bills. It's not right. It's not the way it should be. This is an expensive town to live in. I get that. I struggle too. However, again, the sacrifice is worth it. But if they start looking to other districts because they have to feed their children and keep a roof over their head, you know, that's shameful. And I don't think that there's any reason that, A, this should have happened. I am so grateful to each and every one of these teachers for showing up without a contract. I had no idea that they've been doing this since last year. And I just want to say thank you, and please pass that on to all of your peers, because I'm sorry that I didn't know. And I wish that we would have a little bit more transparency. And while it's important to think about buildings and budgets and this and that, I mean, it's kind of all for nothing if there's no teachers here to teach our children. And we want the best, do we not? So I am pleading, and I implore you with whatever power. I don't even know who to speak to, who else to appeal to, but this isn't okay. And yes, there's overcrowding, and don't even get me started about the 8th grade going to the high school. I'm sure some of you recognize me from that assembly as well, but that's fine. That can wait. They need to be back online. The amount of work that I see my daughter's teacher takes, and the care and the love and the concern and all the extras that she does to put in, it moves me. It really, really does. And I've let her know that, and I'm so grateful and appreciative. And her teacher last year in 1st grade and her teacher prior to that in kindergarten, I cannot speak highly enough about the quality education and the people that are running these classrooms, and they deserve this. And I ask you to please provide us the information, what we can do as parents to help move this process along, because what's the end game? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if we're at a stalemate here, what happens in a week, a month? I don't know. So as a parent, I really plead with anybody here to at least provide some information, to advocate for our teachers, because I'm so grateful. And our kids deserve it, and they deserve to be paid. And it is. It's brutal to pay bills these days. And I just want to let them know that even though there's only one of us here tonight, there are a lot of us out there that want to help. And I just hope that you can provide us the information and everybody the resources, because we're all here for hopefully the same reason. And I don't think anyone's trying to do anything to hurt anybody, right? We're here to make things better for our kids. So please help us do that. Give us the information we need, the names of the people we can appeal to, something. Because it is, it's unfair, and it's also a little unnerving as a parent to wonder, okay, so where is this going? So I thank you for your time, and teachers, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
So this is public comment, so we will not be responding. We are here to listen. Is there anyone else here that's interested in making public comment this evening? Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
have a parent from Wilbraham, said I would call her.
Her name is Christine Rodriguez. She lives in Wilbraham. She's a parent of 3 children.
Hi, Christine, you're on.
Okay, hi. Thank you for this opportunity for me to speak. I'm sorry I physically couldn't be there. I had to work. But I just wanted to say, I'm sure there are obviously, to Casey's point, I support and agree with everything she said. But I'm sure there's lots of feedback and varying opinions on this whole matter. I'm not on Facebook or any of those social media, so I don't see that. But I know this is also a very hard topic because this is budget and, there's only so much money. However, I feel like I can come from all angles here because I have 2 children with IEPs. One's on the spectrum, and I also have a neurotypical child. And I've been super blessed to have the most amazing teachers and paras that I've ever met. But again, I'm very much part of the team. I communicate daily with them, and I'm very active, and I'm in constant communication with their biggest advocates. So that is obviously a factor, and I don't know, I'm sure not all parents do that. But just recently, and I know you all are aware, but just what is disturbing to me in living here, and I moved here for the, obviously, school district and the teachers and such. I just find it embarrassing and not really sure what I'm supposed to say and how I'm supposed to best support them because, the teachers that I am friends with and have built relationships with, know that I support them and I show my appreciation all the time as best I can. But when my husband and I are going to the 3 different schools and we're dropping them off and my 2nd grader is watching the entire school outside before he's even about to walk in, I totally see both sides and I'm just not sure how I'm supposed to, basically say this is like an adult temper tantrum because they feel like they're not being heard or supported or seen. And I don't know, I can't speak in terms of the negotiations. I know that's probably confidential information. And my career as a pharmacist have never been part of a union, so I don't know exactly all angles of that. So I do respect that. And I know also just people that are teachers that don't want to be doing the protesting and being out there. But obviously they feel like if they don't do it, then they're kind of going to be shamed by colleagues. And obviously the union is asking them to stand up together as a union to, stay united in the fact that they should, get paid for going above and beyond. And again, I don't know, what they're asking. I don't know details in terms of the money and dollar amount. But I just know that it's just, I'm not sure how we ended up this way, and I'm sure this has happened before in the past. My oldest is in 6th grade, so I really don't know. And I'm all for increasing taxes, even though I'm already paying $20,000 a year, but obviously I know I'm not the majority of the community, and I just want them to know that they're supported and feel like they're, getting paid for the work they're doing. I know they go above and beyond, but again, I also think it's ridiculous that, we're dropping off our kids and they're in their cars, and I just would have hoped that this wouldn't be happening in this community, but obviously this can happen anywhere, and I know there's not an answer and you can't provide one at this time, but I know with the budget and the numbers, and I just would hate to see, as everyone's already stated, teachers that are amazing and paras, any budget cuts and program being cut, because they truly are amazing people, and they've helped my son that's on the spectrum become who he is today. And his para, who he's always had a para one-to-one, and I would hate to see like cousin paras because I know they go above and beyond. But I just think this is like ridiculous, and and it's unfair to the children, it's unfair to everyone involved. That we, should be able to come together as a community to figure this out. And again, I didn't probably know for how long it has been going on, but I'm more than welcome to help be a part of any, committee or crunching numbers. I know that everybody, it's a budget and we need to provide to the community as a whole, and there's other, parts of, different departments and such. But I just wanted to make you all aware, as I'm sure you already are, that I just don't know how we've gotten to this point, and I don't know what the answer is, but I just hope that we can come to one soon where they're, feeling seen, heard, and I think we all have the same intent and the same goal, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Is there anyone else here that's interested in making public comment? Okay, thank you very much. We will continue with subcommittee updates. We'll begin with this curriculum subcommittee.
There is no update, but we do have a meeting scheduled in February to go over the program of studies for the high school.
Okay, thank you. Planning committee, there's no update at this time. Finance, operations, and technology subcommittee, Mike?
We have not had a meeting since our last school committee meeting. There are 2 dates that are going to be coming up that people in the committee might be interested. They're certainly not mandatory meetings. Are both dates set now, Erin?
No.
Only one is set, correct? And is that the capital meeting?
That's the capital meeting, and that is Wednesday, February 11th.
So the meeting with our school district and the capital planning meeting for Wilbraham is, what was the date of that again? January 11th? February 11th at 6:30?
February 11th at 6:30 at the police station.
At the police station. It's most emphatically talk to the finance and operations subcommittee members if you're going to attend. Please RSVP, because if you end up with a quorum, then that way Erin will know to post. Although, it's mostly John and Doug's show at that meeting. And then I'll ask Erin to send an email notification when we have the date set for the presenting meeting with FinCom to discuss the operations budget, which is still in flux.
Okay, thank you. We'll continue with the LPVET collaborative representative, Lisa.
I don't have anything to report, but I will at our next meeting.
Perfect, thank you. Nothing to report for the negotiation subcommittee, policy subcommittee, Mike?
Okay, we have the first reading on the following policy.
Actually, just a quick thing here on the negotiations. Do you think it might be that it might be good if we gave people the information the parents were asking for? Because both parents seem to be asking, and I've talked to a lot of parents that just want to know like what's going on. Like, could we give this is where the union started, this is where we are, and then this is where we presently are, just to show them how close or far off that we are, but by giving that information and sharing where we've come, in the road and everything like that, it might be helpful, do you think?
We can certainly do that. We can discuss that. We can schedule a meeting for us to discuss that in executive session, and we can do that at our next school committee meeting. So we may have to convene for an executive session because we do not have one planned this evening.
Perhaps if you just read the press release, perhaps not everybody has seen the official school committee press release.
It wasn't the paper. It was.
Well, I know it was in the paper, but those papers come. The weather's not been nice. The people's papers might have been frozen to the driveway. I'm sorry, Michelle. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, okay.
You and if you find it, I'm happy to read it.
Okay, so this was a press release from the school committee So the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School District School Committee remains committed to reaching a fair and sustainable agreement with our educators. A majority of our members are current or former Massachusetts Teachers Association union members, and all members of the committee are deeply committed to supporting educators and students and have a great respect for the work that our educators do. The HWEA has said that our students deserve schools that are properly staffed and have the resources and programs to meet their needs. We agree. To provide that responsibly, we must balance competitive compensation with the district's financial realities. Our offers reflect regional settlements and the fiscal capacity of our communities. Going significantly beyond our current position would likely require staff or program reductions, which would harm students and increase workload for educators. Our goal has been to settle these contracts quickly so we can provide well-deserved raises and keep the district focused on teaching and learning. We recognize that prolonged negotiations create uncertainty for staff and families. Both parties have concluded that we are at an impasse and have jointly requested mediation. We will participate fully and in good faith with the shared goal of reaching an agreement that supports educators, protects students, and remains financially sustainable for both communities.
So is there, I mean, so we would need to have a school committee meeting if we decide, you know, if we just want to show everyone, you know, this is where we started and this is where we are now, because we're pretty close on a lot of things and such like that, but let the community members know. So we'll have a meeting, we can discuss that and we can put it up.
Yeah, it'll just be a single executive session.
But that'll be at least 2 weeks from now, correct?
Possibly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll continue with, you did policy already? Did you? Oh, policy, yep.
Almost did policy.
Sorry.
It's the first.
Sorry for the interruption.
That's fine, sorry. It was first reading of the following policy, middle school pathway awareness policy.
Amazing. So,
I'm so used to there being like a dozen to read off. It's like, it's just weird.
do you want another meeting to report?
Nothing has happened with the publication. I have not even been sent anything to sign.
Okay. And there's nothing to report on the superintendent evaluation or the MAC representative. So we'll continue with the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the, the consent agenda.
Just need a second. Second. Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we do have some donations that we need to accept. I did. So there was one that was made from David Kowalczyk to the Jason Miziazek Memorial Scholarship Fund, and that was for $800. There was another contribution that was from Minnechaug, another one from Minnechaug. It was from Ann General to the Jason Miziazek Memorial Scholarship Fund, and the amount of $100. And then there was one for Green Meadows from Mrs. Walker to the Green Meadows Music Department, and that was in the amount of $700.
I'd like to make a motion that the school committee vote to accept the donations of $800 from David
Kowalczyk,
and $100 from Ann Gennaro to the Jason Miziazek Memorial Scholarship Fund, and also the donation from Mrs. Walker of $700 to Green Meadows Music Department.
Second. Questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you
7-0.
very much
Thank you for the donations.
for amazing generosity.
Okay, our next meeting is January 22nd. It's here in the IRC at 6:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so we'll do roll call to adjourn the meeting. Cheryl? Aye. Tim?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Lisa?
Yes.
Rich?
Yeah,
Okay, Mike?
Yeah.
Myself, aye, we're adjourned. It's 8:09 PM. Thank you very much.